please mute original audio so that you won't be listening to both channels at the same time. You can find the instructions over there in the chat. Sol Nemet, our interpreter, has already put that there, and she continues to join us in our sessions. My name is Israel Rosas. I am the manager of development. I work in Internet Society in several projects, including this one for the development of infrastructure and community. Now, before I give way to my colleagues and friends, I dare call them friends because we've met each other many, many times before. I do want to give you a brief outlook as to what it is that we do in the project of the development of infrastructure and community. This is one of the projects that we have of the action plan for 2020 that we are executing in ISOC. It is, I think, in the slot of projects that we have, it is developed and focused to the growth of the internet. We understand that the collaboration and trust between all the stakeholders and all the people who are operating internet and who are creating and developing internet every day is fundamental. We understand that without that collaboration, without that trust, many of the initiatives that we carry out every single day would definitely not have the same scope that they do. Here in particular, I think we can definitely see the importance of the collaboration, not just between the members of the Internet Society community that is made up of our chapters, associate organizations, and individual members, but also the importance of the alliances and collaborations with other organizations in the community. We have been working in the region hand in hand with LACNIC, with LACNEX, also with Clara, in order to set up alliances that can foster actions that can lead to the growth of the internet. And in this particular project, we recognize that infrastructure is a core element in the growth of the internet. But we also understand that this infrastructure does not deploy itself. It is the people who operate networks at the technical level who actually build the internet day by day. They make the internet work and continue to work in the way that it was conceived and in the way that we as ISOC are promotes. In order for it to be globally connected, secure, trustworthy, and open. And this collection of networks who have decided to collaborate, to exchange traffic, and to continue to grow, do not just align with the philosophy that we want to foster, but it is also about a vision that stems from the development of protocols and the design of the protocols that made the internet possible. So this project in particular strongly interacts with IXPs, with NOGs, with NRENs as well. And basically, our activity is focused on 5 big areas. First, we want to build communities. We help people get together and meet, regardless of the pandemic context that we are undergoing right now. And we mainly promote activities through the local network operators, the NOGs at the local level. As a matter of fact, we work with LACNOG, that is turning 10 this year. And we also work with NRENs. Other activities that we carry out are based on providing support to those people who help build the internet. So we support technical communities, we provide support to the deployment of IXPs and access points. We have worked with sysadmins, with NRENs, and what we try to do is to get these communities to start working on activities such as peering forums, and if they are already implementing peering forums, for them to make use of our help in order to leverage those forums. We also work on capacity building, so we have tutorials, we have online courses when it is possible. We also have live face-to-face trainings, but of course that is something that we have limited in the past few months, but that is still part of the project too. And lastly, what we want to do is share information to facilitate the open flow of information, to promote spaces where best practices can be shared, but also spaces where operators and people who are working at the technical level on the different layers of the internet to feel comfortable to ask questions and then to try to solve their problems together. Because we know that when we are operating at a technical level, we might have a lot of questions, and more often than not, we're not the first people to have those questions. So that's why we always encourage you to ask your local colleagues or your colleagues from other networks and chapters questions, because they've probably gone through what you're going through at that moment, and they can save you some time and some steps in that problem resolution, and you can even help them solve their problems. And then the fifth area that we're covering with the project has to do with alliances that we have with other organizations. And as I was telling you, something that we really take into account is the importance of cooperation and collaboration as part of our DNA even. That is why we've always had really good relationships with Facebook, Flex Optics, and we've also worked with regional associations here, for example, in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have a memorandum of understanding with LACNIX and LACNIC, which has helped us promote the development of IXPs in the region. In other regions, we also have a good presence. We've collaborated with other organizations too, and what we are trying to do, or what we want, is to continue working in this collaborative manner. We want to continue promoting the philosophy and to keep an open communication between technical operators. And now that I've given you a very general overview of the project, I do want to ask Nancy, who is our host, please, to make Nayreth co host because she has a presentation to share with us. And in the meantime, let me tell you about her. Nayreth is part of our Panama chapter. We were with her in Panama when the pandemic had not struck yet, because we were conducting LACNIC LAGNOG meeting. And as a matter of fact, we were part of one of the first meetings of Panama NOG. And we were also able to be part of a session of the Panama chapter, which is something that we really enjoyed. So I decided to invite Nayreth so that she can share her experience with us in fostering activities with with NOG Panama. So Nancy, if you are here, can you make Nayreth co-host so that she can share her presentation? And in the meantime, you have the floor, Nayreth. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I know that you're in your office, which is why you are taking all necessary precautions there with a face mask. Okay, just a second. I think you can all see my screen, right? Yes, yeah, we can see it. We can't see the full screen though. We can just see the editable version. What about now? Yes. Well, thank you, and thanks to everyone. As Isra told you, I'm in the office, so I'm wearing the face mask, and there's background noise as you can hear. But the presentation for today is basically the result of the support that we got from all the stakeholders in the region within the Panama chapter. Here we have many initiatives that we want to take into consideration, and we are basically trying to promote where I am working to have stable, secure internet. And in that area, we're going to be discussing cybersecurity, internet resilience, network operation, and interconnection. And we created this initiative of having an NOG in Panama. We have people from ISOC, Latin America, LACNOG, and LACNIC. So we had interested parties from all of those groups. We were discussing that initiative, but it wasn't up until that last meeting that we had, the LACNIC LACNOG meeting in Panama 2019, when we actually had the first formal meeting for the network operators groups. We had set up different networks, but we hadn't really done things formally. So we felt that this was the right time for the group to actually get together. We had a very fun, lively meeting. We had several representatives from Panama and from the entire region. We shared our experiences together, and we talked to operators in the region, and of course with people from ISOC, LACNOG, and LACNIC, who provided support for us in those first stages, discussing their own experiences with with similar initiatives. And based on this, we set the roadmap that we wanted for our network operators group. And what we wanted was for the group to be a space where we could collaborate, share experiences, ideas. There was a lot of camaraderie there, because especially in the technical areas, we really need to provide a lot of support for each other, because internet is based on trust, and we also need to trust each other too, and make sure that we can help each other. I am so sorry. There's a lot of noise in the background, but there's someone here in the office, I'm afraid. Anyway, as I was saying, here you see the pictures. We were there. We were able to share the experience of many people from the region, not just from Panama. Now, based on these guidelines, and although this happened before we actually had our first formal meeting, I do want to say this because it is in connection to the creation of the group. We had a meeting um, in which we focused on spreading the commonly agreed upon rules and regulations for the safe routing of the internet. And in that meeting, we had representatives from several regions, from the government, researchers, people from universities, technical professionals, ISPs as well. Uh, and of course, people from the IXP as well, and then of course people from Internet Society, from the Panama chapter. And what we wanted here was to create social awareness and local awareness in order to improve the technical security of the internet. We wanted to promote a culture of responsibility and collaboration, and we wanted to put a lot of emphasis here, because we felt that it was necessary for us to protect the core of the internet. We wanted to discuss all the different aspects, of course, of the internet that were interesting, but still we needed to focus on the core, because if the core fails, then everything fails too. So by 1019, in comparison to 2017, and even if many operators were participating of the manners, we realized that in those 2 years, the number of incidents that were reported were lower. And it also became important for us to see that the IXPs providers also needed to join in and agree upon these manners. And then in 2019, later on in 2020, we conducted a webinar where we discussed the following steps. Christian and Israel were actually with us over there. And what we wanted was to reinforce the things that we had discussed in the previous meetings, and also present our information to the Manners Observatory with regards to what was happening with ISPs in Panama. And we wanted to discuss and make sure that all ISPs and all network operators did their part and made sure that they were complying with these manners. Then we also had a training session with Erika Bea from LAGNOG. She always collaborates with us, and Guillermo Cecilio also participated, and he was helping us on behalf of LACNIC. And those were the points that we were able to present. Then after that, of course, we were able to work on different actions. So first, we worked on training. We also felt that it was necessary to call upon more people in the group and to make sure that everyone knew what we were doing. We wanted to get funding because we want to create work groups on interconnection, because we believe that that is a very important point to focus on. And we also want to think about new projects that might help us on resilience and with other aspects that the members believe are necessary. So far, I think we are using our training wheels in order to grow as capacity builders. And in the chapter, we realize that sometimes it is hard, and this is something that we discussed this when we were talking about IPv6. It is hard sometimes because there is resistance, and you hear, okay, people should stop talking about IPv4 and should start talking about IPv6, but that's not always easy because not everyone has the technical knowledge necessary to teach things. So what we want is to train our members, to provide them with the necessary tool and resources that they need, then for them to develop and to grow the projects. Then we also have a mailing list. We want our group to feel safe, to feel comfortable, to share experiences, to see that we're part of the LAGNOG lists. And we also want to be able to replicate that camaraderie that we have within the Panama group. And that would be it for me. Thank you very much for asking me to share with you information. Like I was saying, the initiative comes from the chapter. It is supported by the chapter, but this is an external group that focuses on mainly becoming autonomous and being comfortable. But of course, I think we all have our different thinking caps on, and we move from one group or organization to another with quite ease. And we have our slogan there, and the slogan is "Join us." And we think it's what we want for people to join us, and there are many options for that within the chapter. Thank you very much, Nayreth. I think this really goes to show how one of our chapters is able to provide technical support. I think that's one of the collaborations that we've been able to see in the chapters. Unfortunately, these sessions only provide an overview of the work that our chapters do in the region, but just as Panama is doing this in many countries, this is being taken up, and the NOG becomes a school of sorts, right? And it's a space to train and to work on capacity building with network operators in the country. Um, so now, if we move to network operators, away from that, we're going to start working about IXPs or internet exchange points. We've been developing these IXPs with sturdy determination in our region. And for that, I want to give the floor to Osvaldo Larancuent from our Dominican Republic chapter, because not only is the chapter involved in the creation of the IXPs, but Internet Society Foundation is also working there. So, Osvaldo, you now have the floor to talk about this. We cannot hear Osvaldo, I'm afraid. It is, I don't know if he's on mute, but I cannot hear him.
¿Me escucho bien ahora?
Can you hear me now?
Ya.
Okay, perfect. Yes, we can hear you, Osvaldo. Go ahead. I'm so sorry about this. But as I was saying, first of all, thank you for giving me a chance to share with our colleagues and interested parties in the region and tell you about our experience with a collaborative model that I think it's just a way for us to provide continuity for the models that have been promoted by Internet Society throughout the years to foster collaboration, build ecosystem that focus on the strengthening of the Internet to build infrastructures. And what I would say is that in Dominican Republic, we wanted to start working on an IXP in 2017. This more or less came from the academic area and from ISPs who were working with the Ministry of Higher Education. Unfortunately, that project really didn't come to fruition, but recently in 2017, with the support of our team and the board of directors, we managed to devote the national government's forum to focus on this IXP, considering the help that we would get from Internet Society. And in the forum, we analyzed the past, we analyzed what had gone wrong, and then we brought regulators, ISPs, public and private sector to the table in order to have a very widespread, transparent debate about this. And to make a long story short, everyone agreed on the need to work together to have this project come to fruition. And at that moment, we designed an MOU, and this MOU discussed the intention to participate and to become involved in the project. And in that, we were able to have 23 organizations, amongst which we had ISPs such as Claro, Altis, Wing from Dominican Republic, network operator, carriers, Columbus, Warriors, for example, among other users, to participate and join in this memorandum of understanding. And so now I will talk to you a bit about the IXPs. So the IXPs are basically the structure that provides support for the internet. So it's not internet being a network of network. The ideal thing is that in each space, distances are reduced to improve user experience, because users at the end of the day are the biggest consumers of the internet. And this consumption or this use is made difficult when the distance through underground cables provide delays in reception or latency. That is what we call it. That is that latency between the moment in which a signal is broadcast and it comes back. And that latency in our country um, made that we wanted to have an IXP to provide quick connectivity, but also to bring content providers such as Google, Amazon, Netflix, and those big content providers um, that have their networks outside of the country. So if we can bring them to our country, we can work together in cost reductions and improvement of efficiency and user experience, of course. And this also calls for and fosters digital transformation, because content developers, such as people in the press, people in academia, and people in banking, can also develop content at a local level. Now, there are several IXPs, but ours, or the one that we're working on, is neutral. It comes from civil society. It is a nonprofit IXP. It is sustainable because we wanted to continue to exist throughout time. It is affordable, and it fosters the creation of capacity. Now, around the world, we have 20,542 IXPs. That was the date as of October 2019, but only 16 IXPs exist in the region. Now, if you can see here, we have one over there in Dominican Republic, But actually, it wasn't there. It was in Haiti. Now, Dominican Republic has one, so we have 17 in the region rather than 16. And over here, as you can see, we have 5 underwater cables that actually connect to Dominican Republic and also to Haiti. And in this space, we're talking about 48,000 kilometers of Dominican Republic. We have 5 underwater cables, and we have over 40 ISPs. And it is one of the best connected countries in the region, but the connectivity is fragmented because the ISPs were not interconnected by an IXP. So our goal was to look at this. Look, we had all those cables there. Arcos had went all around the country. Then American Mobile was connected Central America to Miami and the Caribbean. We had Antilles 1 connecting us to Puerto Rico, one of the oldest ones actually. Then we have FiberLink that connects us to Jamaica and Haiti, East West Cable that connects us to Jamaica and Puerto Rico, and so on and so forth. So the basis of the IXPs is to work over that critical infrastructure to reduce costs, improve efficiency and connectivity, to improve the governance of infrastructure at a local level so that it is neutral, nonprofit, and supports a transparent model between stakeholders, and it provides for the development of local capacity and create an ecosystem of users who are interested in the development of the internet. And in order for us to do that, to improve internet in Dominican Republic based on the governance model that has 6 layers, covers several sectors such as technology, economy, public policies, and society in order for the model to be inclusive, to stimulate digital transformation. But at the end of the day, an IXP, in the most absurd way, is no more than a switch where all operators interconnect, creating collaboration conditions and the sharing of local infrastructures. Here, at a local level, we know that there is an organization that is trying to actually install a DNS server to have the local capacity to solve DNS name servers. And this will actually allow for about 10 gigabytes of traffic. And the expectation, and this is thanks to the support of LACIX, which is one of the stakeholders that has been providing support for us along with LACNIC and Internet Society. We want to bring CDNs to the country so those contacts are closer to the country and they can be consumed internally. Then the current situation here, we have 25 partners, including 7 internet providers such as Claro, Altice, Columbus, which are some of the biggest internet providers, and they actually provide 99% of local connectivity. We have 14 universities, among which you can find the main universities in the country, and then the Dominican government, which was also interested here, especially with the new government, because as of last week, we have a new government that set up a broadband national plan that includes for a legal tender for the adoption of 5G frequencies and wants to focus on several topics. And we have been invited to participate in those roundtables. Now, the Dominican Republic has a backbone of optical fiber through an electrical network. And they're in the process of connecting to us through a data center. They are trying to have a digital government so that those services that are traditionally provided face-to-face can be consumed digitally. And do let me remind you that all the way back to 4 years ago, we have been involved in our government with the digital agenda so that the technological adoption can be felt in education, in the production chain, in health and innovation, in infrastructure, and in social inclusion. And in that way, this year, we were actually selected by the organization of the World Summit of Information Technology. And some of you who might have been there in February and June might have known that Dominican Republic was actually involved in the process of the organization of the summit because we were presiding it. Now, in the project, we got support from ISOC Beyond the Neck. We also had direct support from ISOC LAC, from LACNIC, from PCH, from LAC IX. And especially LAC IX is an association of countries of the region who have been involved in the implementation of IXPs and who create synergies by bringing in content providers, by sharing best practices, and by creating opportunities for us to collaborate together in a global ecosystem that connects us globally and locally, because internally we reproduce the successful experiences of the region. And then we work with standards that are best practices such as manners, such as IPv6, DNSSEC, among other standards that a project such as this one needed, and Dominican Republic would have been unable to create an ecosystem promoting their implementation if they hadn't existed. And then the governance model of the IXDO has 3 layers. First, we have a steering committee. Then we have an executive manager that deals with administration, both at the operation level and the contractual and financial level. And the idea is for us to have funds that we will be using not just for the reinvestment in infrastructure, but also to conduct research with regards to the standards that we are implementing and their possible adaptation to our current national reality. Now, for the next steps, first we want to complete and make up this executive committee, sign the interconnection agreement, and as of the first directive, work on the development of a strong, robust entity based on this model that we will have the first model in Dominican Republic. So those are the elements that we wanted to share with you on the project. And I am open to any questions that you guys might have. Not without first thanking you for giving me the opportunity to have this space. Israel, Nancy, and the entire ISOC lag who have been organizing these chapter workshops. Thank you for providing me the opportunity. Thank you, Osvaldo, for your time and for such an overview, not just of the project, but also of the context in which this project took place. Because particularly for Dominican Republic, this is really beneficial to promote the development of the internet in your country. And it is a pleasure that this is a product of a collaboration of one of our chapters with one of our regional associates. And talking about that, I do want to give the floor to Carmen Denis, who actually directs the IXP in Yucatan, Mexico. And I do want to congratulate her because she has just been confirmed as a member of the LACNIC Board of Directors for the next 3 years. So congratulations on that, Carmen, and also for the project that you're developing in Yucatan. Can you tell us a bit more about the Mexican Caribbean? Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you, Israel and Internet Society, for your invitation. Well, what would I say? A hurricane just came by, but it's now moving to the Gulf of Mexico. So I am safe here, even if we were dealing with that contingency. So thank you for having me. Now, I'm going to share something with you because I like showing what it is that we've done in our Mexican community. Uh, what I want to tell you about is what we've undergone through this development of Internet Yucatan. Specifically, I want to focus on one of its axes, which is the exchange point. So this is the content for my presentation. I'm going to set an alarm so that I don't go over time. Here you can see a map of where Yucatan is. So this region is in the southeast of Mexico. It is quite close to the beautiful area of Quintana Roo, of Cancun. So probably that's how you can locate us. We are neighbors to Quintana Roo. And Yucatan, I think, is noted for its capacity to grow, for its digital maturity, for its capacity to innovate, and to have new companies that are generating content. And we do have a huge community represented by companies, by organizations, by members of the academia and universities. We've identified that we are content generators both at the municipality and national level. And considering the pandemic, we are also working with health services, education levels. We know that our universities are also content generators because they are deploying a lot of material through the internet. So we have other cases too, such as companies that are putting television services to the service of community in Yucatan. The project is made up of three axes. One is infrastructure, one is cooperation and collaboration, and the other is capacity building. With regards to infrastructure, that is where the IXP Yucatan is comes in. In that same axis, we also work on fostering infrastructure in the adoption of internet resources. We also want to adopt added value services, services that are pillars of the internet, but that they are not taking into account in a mature way, if you will, such as a DNS service would be. In the cooperation and collaboration areas, we want to build communities. We want to set alliances with organizations such as LACNIC, LAC-IX, ISOC. And then we also try to work to network at the local level with our allies. And then with regards to capacity building, what we do is we have workshops, training workshops, events, webinars in order to motivate the community that we've been able to create. And we want to motivate them to participate in those events and trainings, but also to participate in other webinars created by the community, such as the one that you guys are doing here in ISOC, or the ones promoted by LACNIC, or the ones that come from LAGNOG too. So that's what we work in each area. So let me now show you screenshots, if you will, of what we've been going about between 2019, where we started thinking about the strategy for this development. The first what we wanted to do was develop an exchange committee. We started collaborating with organizations. The first organizations who provided support for us were Internet Society, LACNIC, and NIC Mexico. We allow them to guide us in the process. In Internet Society, Christian told us, and this was, I think this was a strategic meeting in August. And for me, it was important because this is where we met decision makers and the technical community. First, we talked to decision makers and policy makers as Internet Society through Christian suggested. And then we also collaborated with NIC Mexico and LACNIC, and we established a strategy to raise awareness among decision makers about the needs that we had. So people from ISPs, people from governments and the press, we raised awareness among them. And then we met technical community members. So people that came from organizations that were participating with us in the project, they all accepted the project, and then after that we continued deploying a strategy in order to actually create a local community. And I think that that has been the hardest thing for us, even in those LACNIC events and spaces where we've shared experiences about IXPs. I still think it is important for me to recognize that we heard what you had all done, what Wanda had said that had been done, and what had happened in Dominican Republic. So we were seeing what the Latin American community was doing. We took those examples, and we tried to implement them, and now we are sharing what we're doing too, and we're also strengthening the bonds and the exchange of information and experiences too. So later on, we spent months trying to define where the node would be located, which would be the transport options for the node. Then we also talked about raising awareness about the management of the internet resources. We had meetings, some virtual, some face to face, and we approached LAC-IX too. Then in 2020, we've done several things. Even through the challenges of the pandemic, we still worked hard. So in January, we had our first team meeting, our kickoff meeting in 2020, because we wanted to get started this year. We established a training plan for specialized topics. We established that we would have an Internet Development Week. It was an event that was organized by the Yucatan community, the technical community actually, and we even were able to contact the WISP community in Mexico as well, and that was carried out at the beginning of March, actually a week before at the Latin American level the shutdowns were called upon because of the pandemic. And in that week, in that Internet Development Week, we had the first IXSY assembly where the first 7 associates came forth. Then we start working with the membership in LAC-IX. Then we set up a schedule for training that we asked LAC-IX with all the things that we wanted to consider. We have the node. We decided where the IXP would be located. We continued sessioning in the committee, at least at the virtual level. We discussed the transport alternatives to the IXP. We actually got a server infrastructure donation by LACNIC. I will show you all of this in pictures, but I just wanted to give you a general overview. And I think the most important thing is that we are about to start operating. We would have liked for this to have happened in August, September, but in reality, the pandemic really made it very difficult for us to actually deploy the fiber optic, and many other things happened, and we came across several other obstacles. But in the meantime, we were also able to approach other stakeholders too. So here, as you can see, we've had several trainings for the IXP. Here, the Internet Development Week in Yucatan, where we were supported by all of these organizations, especially by Internet Society, who really helped us structure the contents of this wonderful Internet Week. We worked with the technical community. We had our second National Forum of IXPs with the participation of LACNIC, and with a lot of people from the Mexican communities of WISP Mexico as well. Then we had our assembly. Here, the integration of the members was formalized. Then we had trainings in IXP topics by LAC-IX, and I do want to thank Gabriel and the entire LAC-IX community for helping us. And then lastly, we got that support by LACNIC. They provided us with the server, they trained us, and we will start operating those services now. Here, as you can see, these are the sessions of our technical committee, our work groups, the groups of people who are supporting us, the routing plan, and this would be how things are looking right now and how we're going to start operating quite soon. But I think the most important here is the support that we have here and the sense of belonging that we have to a community, and that all the members that are part of the IXP feel that this is their IXP and that they are doing their best. These are collaborating associates. These are the platforms and the practices that we're preparing. And now we are in this phase. We are trying to work with peering. As a matter of fact, two of them are already in the exchange point, and then we will start operating fully in the next couple of days. So thank you very much, Israel, and thank you all. Thank you, Carmen. And as a matter of fact, if you see, Carmen and Osvaldo both mention Manners, which is one of our projects that we have in order to make internet a more secure space, something that we really like, because we are able to see this collaboration not between internet society and its allies, but between our projects too. As a matter of fact, we have a routing security session on Thursday that I would say you definitely want to hear. And now I want to give the floor to Marco Antonio Do. Marco Antonio Do has been fundamental in the deployment of the IXP in Guatemala, a project that has called the attention of important stakeholders in the internet community. So, Marco, not to spoil your presentation, you have the floor. Can you all see my presentation? Yes. Yes. But you can't see the full screen, right? No, we can't see the full screen. We can just see the tiny screen. Okay, I'm sorry for the delay. Can you see it now? Yes. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Internet society has definitely been an amazing enabler in the region, I would say, and my presentation is rather short. And what I want to share is what our experience has been like in Guatemala with regards to setting up and getting the IXP operational. My name, as Israel said, is Marco Antonio To. I am the president of the IXP. The IXP, as my colleagues were saying before me, is a neutral point. So the association that is the IXP in Guatemala is a nonprofit association that is neutral and independent. That means that the most important thing here is that we are creating an exchange point that benefits members and users of the internet in a neutral way. And of course, like I said, at the end of the day, all users benefit from having an IXP. Anyone who has access to the services benefits from them. So, about the IXP, the story would be that several years ago in Guatemala, there was interest in creating an IXP. Finally, we came to do this in November 2019. Um, and together with the International Telecommunications Union, we were able to carry out the first feasibility study in order to install. He was having connectivity issues, and because technology is really uh, evil sometimes, we were unable to hear him properly, and now he definitely disconnected. Let's try to see if he can connect. But while we wait for him to connect again because of his connectivity issues, Roberto might get started and then we might go to Marco Antonio. What do you say, Roberto? Do you want to go? Yes, so I'm sorry about the technical issues. Roberto, I think, does not need any presentation. As a part of our chapter in Bolivia, he is always active, but he's also part of the IGF as well. Last year, we met in the LAC IGF and in several other activities, and he is also working on an IXP too. Thank you, Israel. Apart from saying hi to you, I do want to welcome all panelists. Thanks to you and to all of you for working so tirelessly on this forum. I know having these kinds of events is not easy, so I definitely respect and appreciate the work that you're doing. I don't know, Israel, because Marco Antonio is back. Since I haven't started, would you like him to go? What? Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me and my internet. Marco, you let us know if you want to start again or. Okay, I'm so sorry about this. Let me go back to it. Thank you, Roberto. I'm sorry. Okay, let me go back to this because I suppose you didn't understand anything. As I was saying, there was a project together with the International Telecommunications Union, and that project enabled us to survey the situation. But the effort to create this particular IXP really implied the work of a lot of people. And there were about 20 organizations who signed the letter of intention, among which those people we had ISPs, and we had network operators and other organizations too. So as this was growing and maturing, one of the basic things that we found was that we needed support, and that support came from Internet Society. And Internet Society led the way to other organizations such as LAC-IX, TLD, LACNIC, and RAGI. And a really important thing, and I think this is different from other IXPs, is that in Guatemala, the main promoter, the main leader who took up the project, if you will, was the academic network. This is the RAGI, so it is the Guatemalan Network for Investigation and Education that connects to Red Clara, the education network in Latin America. And this happened like this because all the operators agreed on this, because they felt that the organization that was the most neutral was in fact the education organizations, which is why they trusted and they entrusted that leadership on the National Research and Education Network. I was at that time the president of the NREN, and now I am the president of the IXP because of that. Now, we have been operating since November 2019. We have about 9 operators who are connectors. Most of them are local operators. We do have some of them who are regional. And obviously, we have the university network too. Currently, we also have set up one of the CDNs for Google. And then by the end of the year, by the end of 2020, Facebook will also be setting up one of its POPs in the region. And we are in that same data center where Facebook decided to set up their POP. So basically, we've had this synergy, right, between all participants, and our intention to have this IXP in the country kind of came from a conversation that we had with Christian O'Flaherty, who actually set up the connection between Facebook and ourselves, and that started leading the way for the other projects that we had. So if you want to set up your IXP, what I would say is that an experience that was useful for us was that we had the letter of intention for most of those ISPs and network operators in Guatemala in 2017. But when we actually said, okay, let's get this thing operational, the ISPs and the operators were actually not the same in 2019 because at the end of the day, getting this up and running is slow. It takes time. So first we had 2 operators connecting to the ISP, then 3 more, then 2 more. And that's because the traffic of an ISP is normally outgoing international traffic, or it leads to CDNs, right? So if they are always connecting to a local IXP, their traffic will definitely decrease. So many of them were reluctant, and they were waiting to have CDNs. At the end of the day, that's what they were waiting for. And I think that because we've started gaining a bit more momentum, if you will, we are starting to grow much more. Eventually, then we will get bigger providers who will benefit from the IXP, not that much from CDNs, but at least from services, or at least certain industries that, because of security purposes, do need the providers to be directly connected to the IXP so that their traffic is not international. So just as it happens with other IXPs, we've got root DNS servers. These are actually on the process of being installed. One is a root server I based on the LACNIC Raíces project. Another comes from Packet Clearinghouse. And then, of course, another one for a nod for the Anycast cloud of LAC TLD. We will also have an RPKI validator, and of course, we will have the CDNs connections that I was mentioning. And I do want to especially mention the support of the Internet Society. Definitely, it is not easy, because when we needed the biggest support and the most support possible, not just for infrastructure, but of course, I mean, the hardware donations that we got for connectivity and servers was really important, because of course that also brings in other organizations too. But especially in the area of guidance, how to administer this, how to communicate with those stakeholders that we weren't even aware of, or that we had no networks to. So, hey, here you can connect to LAC IX or LAC TLD with other IXPs, but LACNIC. So those connections were really the most important thing for us. And for that, we needed the support of Internet Society, and definitely capacity building seminars in RPKI and in Manners and in other services as well, such as IPv6, were incredibly useful and helpful for us, especially for operators who are small operators and who connect to the IXP and wonder, how should I connect? How should I handle a BGP a session, and so on and so forth? So that would be our experience, and I am so sorry for starting off so bumpily and my issues with the connection. Anyway, you have my contacts over here. Then you have Ivan Morales' contacts, who is in charge of the technical aspects of the project, and we're here for you if you have questions. Thank you, Marco. Thank you for all your effort and for the tireless work that you're doing at the local level with the IX and with the NOG. And now Roberto has the floor to share about the many projects in Bolivia. Roberto, you have the floor. Once again, thank you, Israel. And hi, everyone. Hi to all the panelists, to all the friends that I see connected here. Many a times I feel like I should get to know you face to face, but even if I don't, I still feel that we're a family. So my regards to all of you today. I want to briefly share a presentation with you that provides a bit of background for the project that we've been carrying out in the Bolivia chapter. We've been working on this for a couple of years now, and it has to do with the implementation of the NREN in Bolivia, and with the creation of a traffic network in Bolivia as well. And this is motivated by the situation and the reality in many of our countries, especially in Bolivia, because I think that we have internet that is extremely costly. In the case of Bolivia, it is the most expensive internet in the region. And for higher education entities, many times they cannot get the appropriate internet services that they need. As a matter of fact, they end up hiring about 200 megabytes per second, which is not enough of a speed. Many universities have speeds that are below that. Also, because of the pandemic, we've had less services provided. We don't have that many services permeating the entire society, albeit we do have new offers with fiber optic, but still the requirement in terms of capacity, transmission capacity of speed in the country is too high. And many countries in the region actually have higher speed levels, both for upload and download. So what happens in Bolivia is that we are still not connected to Red Clara, and we cannot make use of the educational benefits of that network. And of course, the pandemic has also dramatically aggravated the situation, but it has also made us react and see that these limitations are latent and particularly affect universities in our country. As a matter of fact, the community that I'm talking about comprises about 600,000 people, made up of students, teachers, researchers, and support staff. It is a really big community when we consider that we have about 10 million inhabitants in Bolivia. So, in order to understand the background that led to the project, I do want to remember you that because universities are great content developers, prior to the particular development of apps by the massification of mobile phones, or by the possibility of having more people, in this case students and teachers, having mobile devices, most of the transactions or services or accesses to information were carried out through labs, through local services, generally distributed among the universities. But as citizens have become able to, especially students have become able to use new smartphones, tablets, and different devices that provide them with access to information, these new apps have been deployed. And in the case of the university, we're talking about content of the academic nature in these apps, and these services are no longer received in the universities, but rather people access them outside of the universities. And this meant that slowly universities start hiring bigger internet capacities to increase their connectivity. But as I've said, that is not always the case because they don't have the funds to do it. And that led to the necessity of a solution. Here you can see a typical scenario before having an IXP, and I think that most of you who are here with us today know what an IXP is. We've heard several of our colleagues talk about this amazing resource, but just to remind you what an IXP is, or to tell you what it is if you don't know what it is, I wanted to share this little drawing that clearly explains what it means to have content without an exchange point, and how users have to access those contents through their ISPs, as you can see them over here. But necessarily, those ISPs are having their data flow many kilometers to then connect to another provider for our internet provider, and then eventually get to the university server. That entire trajectory can make it so that a student who is in an internet cafe 200 meters away from university still has to have his or her traffic travel that distance. So by creating an IXP, what we're doing is we're bypassing all of that trajectory. And thanks to ISOC, we were able to set up the first IXP. We just deployed in 2013, the first one, and then in 2016, and again with a significant support in getting equipment and getting training from Internet Society. And as you can see, the traffic no longer has to leave the Bolivian territory, but we can just use smaller distance, quicker distance, and of course, we save resources and money. So it is interesting then to think about whether or not we can move forward here. So the question would be, is it just for ISPs? Should only ISPs make use of this IXP? Well, no. Content developers such as universities should be able to directly connect to the IXPs too. I'm not saying that this is always the solution and it's not always deployable. There are regulations against that. We've had to have long discussions regarding the fact that the way in which interconnection is allotted is normally privileged to those who have international connections. So we wanted to talk to authorities and regulators in order for them to understand that content generators such as universities and government entities as well should be able to access those ISPs too, because they're providing good services for the community. So based on that, we saw that there was a possibility of supporting this new connection. We saw that ISOC had devices that would enable us to focus on a project such as this one, creating a second IXP. And then we were able to create another IXP for the research and education network. So now we have an IXP that is exclusive for the research network. For us, it's like an app because we want to, in a way, distinguish it or have it separate from the traditional IXP. And this has enabled all content generators to become part of this network. So as you can see here in the topology of interconnection in Bolivia, we have these two different IXPs. And this means that we have a strategic member that is an associate, that is, of course, a member of the beneficiary community, which are the universities. In this case, the San Andres University that is in La Paz. And it has become our first strategic associates in the project. They actually have the IXP in their university, and they provide the interconnection for all universities in the country. There are over 60 private and public organizations of the country that are connected to the IXP. And most of the universities are private universities across the many cities of the country. And so the solution that we had here was based on, as I was saying, this schematic that you can see here, but it also entailed having an agreement with the IXP so that we could all benefit from this interconnection, and also removing a bit of the administrative burden for them, which would mean independently connecting all the interested parties to the Bolivian IXP. So what we wanted to do was to have a separate academic IXP. Here, I just wanted to mention some of the teams and organizations that helped. And also you can see the switches that we got. They were actually a donation from ISOC. And these switches were not just useful for the academic network, but we were actually able to share one of those equipments for the general IXP in Bolivia. And we also acquired smaller equipment as part of the project. The ones that you can see over there are 305 microtext switches. They are non-expensive, but they are quite powerful. And the solution that we had for the other cities, such as Cochabamba or Santa Rosa, needed core switches. They are 1072 microtick switches. They are not costly, and I do want to mention them because, like I said, they are inexpensive, but they are very powerful, and they help you interconnect the network. So the intention is just to have all the cities connect to the main IXP in La Paz, creating an interconnection with the general IXP Bolivia. So if now we only have one in La Paz, we would be able to have nodes around the rest of the cities. And as Marco Antonio was saying, and this is something that is fundamental for us, is that there are many things that we can do with research and education network, especially for rural areas and the interior of our country. The first thing is that we can connect to Red Clara because this is a network that connects 11 countries in Latin America, but it also connects 134 countries at a global level. And that's beneficial because there is a lot of information there, and there are research facilities and organizations that are interconnected to that network. So we're getting apps, resources, and information that is there, and it becomes available to our Bolivian communities. And as you can see over here, the connections are fantastic with regards to speed. So we've got about channels that are interconnecting in 20 or 10 gigabytes per second. And we are actually connected to the America Snap that is there in Florida in the United States. And we are also focusing on a new project, building the Europe link to Latin America, the Bell project, that will enable us to connect our Latin American subcontinent from Fortaleza in Brazil to Portugal, which is a city that's close to Lisboa. And in that case, we will have a higher connection. And of course, we will be able to skip certain jumps, which is really important. Also, in parallel, as you know, the United States has Internet 2, that's their own network, and Europe has GIANT, that's their academic network. They have really very interesting connections connecting universities across the world. And I mean, over here you have the NRENs that really are big and that we want to be a part of. Now, moving forward and thinking about perspectives, we have been working hard. The Ministry of Education has been providing support for us. They've called the authorities of the universities for this first stage of interconnection between universities. They are going to be working with three cities: La Paz, Cochabamba, and Santa Cruz, and we also want to work with two more cities as well. We've been transacting with the Ministry of Public Works in order to be able to create an interconnection between these five cities to have five nodes, and also we want to have an interconnection all the way to Lurin, which is a place quite close to Lima, and many of the fiber optic ISPs get there. So we want to have a connection there, and one of the national operators is trying to connect to that city. Now, based on all the work that we've carried out, we wanted to map all the stakeholders that participated in the project. Most of them were involved from the beginning, but we were also able to identify their needs and the benefits that this project would provide for them, especially for those of them who actually launched the IXP. Especially the Ministry of Transport, which has been a key stakeholder in the progress of this project too. And what I mean by lodgers, because they don't actually administer the IXP, of course. We've had many meetings. We've had several workshops, both face to face and virtual, throughout the country. Of course, before the pandemic, we were able to meet all the time. We were now starting to work with these virtual resources, and I'm sure that we will be able to continue working like this. We always try to come up with simple, inexpensive solutions and designs, and we try to deploy the project in stages. We don't aspire to meeting all the requisites in one go or to connect all universities at the same time. We are moving stage step by step. We're trying to be as patient as we can be, because many a times the things that we're planning do not happen in the time that we want them to happen. And then, of course, we were able to subscribe several agreements. This is one of the big strengths of the project. We were able to place a lot of emphasis in the interest that the stakeholders had. We signed agreements with Red Clara, the San Andres University, the Authority to Regulate and Audit Telecommunications and Transport, the Ministry of Education, along with their vice ministries. And we are right now about to sign agreements with the Ministry of Public Works, especially with the Vice Ministry of Telecommunications, with the Bolivian Catholic University, with the Engineering Military School, and with the National Association of Private Universities. So that's what I wanted to say. I am sorry because I went so fast. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you, Roberto. I think you really mentioned something important, and that's that throughout this pandemic, we were able to see that the IXPs effectively were resilient. We realized that the internet would resist, right? I see Patricia Govild has her hand up. Patricia, if you want to say something. If you want to ask your question, Patricia, maybe you raised your hand by accident. I'm sorry. Okay, so Nadia is asking whether or not Cuba is part of any of these alternative networks. It is not about alternative networks, really. It's about having projects that are focused on specific stakeholders, right? So the projects that Marco Antonio, Osvaldo, and Carmen were talking about were focused on network operators in their own communities. Roberto's project is mainly focused on the academia, on research and education network, but also working for other operators in the cities. Yes, absolutely. And so, well, I do want to thank you all for being panelists, for being members of such an enriching community of experts. And thank you for this interesting session. It is a pleasure to see how much we've moved forward in the region. And like I said, it's not that much. I mean, we've done so much work in the region, and we'll be telling you more about the advancements, about the projects that we're carrying out in the next few months. So please stay tuned to our internet website, internetsociety.org. You can also consult our networks such as Twitter at Internet Society. You can find us on Facebook as Internet Society Nick. Latin America and the Caribbean. And please stay tuned to the next sessions, especially this afternoon. In the chat, you can see the link for the trivia. There's a Survey Monkey there. There are 3 questions that you can answer to continue getting more points for your certificate. And in 40 minutes, we will have a session on VUCA environments, and then the typical region session that really I hope that you check it out, because I promise you that you will have an appetizer, main dish, and a dessert after this. So thank you all for your attention, and let's continue with the chapters workshop. Afternoon.
Gracias,
Adiós.
que estén bien, hasta luego, muchas gracias.
Amén. Que estén muy bien.
Gracias, Israel, a todos por compartir sus experiencias. Hasta luego.
Gracias. Buenas
Hasta
tardes.
luego, buenas tardes.